Have you ever wondered what the intersection of serendipity and storytelling looks like? Well, I've had firsthand knowledge because I've initiated, supported, gotten involved with networks where amazing serendipities happen. And in fact, I'm hoping that I can release a podcast in the new year that will be focused on serendipities and networking. But right now, let's look at serendipities and storytelling. I'm Melissa G. Wilson here from Networlding and Networlding Publishing, books and more that make the world better. Today I want to tell you a story to illustrate and illuminate what can happen with serendipity and storytelling. Last week, I had the great honor of getting into the business world in Chicago and meeting at the Willis Tower, which used to be the Sears Tower, with Billy Dexter, who I talk about often, my co-author, or I should say I'm his co-author, and helped and published his book, Making Your Network, The Art and Science of Mastering the Art and Science of Career and Business Networking. Well, what happened that day was I was bringing together, as I love to do, networlding. And by the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but Melissa is Greek for honeybee. And I love to make connections. But I will also add, which I think I've added, that the connections are, as Malcolm Gladwell talked about, you're a salesperson, you're persuasive, you're a maven, you have wisdom, you also are someone who's a connector. It's when you put all three together, you get a networlder. And that's what I spent at least 20 years working on and perfecting, is how to create transformational opportunities, AKA serendipities. So, back to the story. Monica Diaz, who's one of my authors also, with whose book I published and helped with as a book creation coach and expert. Monica recently left her position as the Chief Diversity Officer of Caribbean Cruise Lines. And I was referred to Monica through Billy. It was wonderful to work with her. And while I was working with her, she had time between jobs, which is a perfect time, if you're a thought leader, to get your book started and developed. And Monica was disciplined, and she got her book done and got her book out, and then got this wonderful job at Caribbean Cruise Lines. But now, recently, she left her job looking for what is next. So I said, let's get together with Billy and let's see what serendipities happen, because they always happen when we get together, and see what the conversation and where the conversation leads us. So we're talking, and Monica begins, and she shares the story of meeting someone through a connection here. She was working at UIC, one of the universities here in Chicago, and she was directed to contact someone whose name we'll call her Sarah. So Monica got in touch with Sarah, and she found out that Sarah had been a top executive at Google. But Sarah's interest was something very different. She was ready to move on and look at a new opportunity. And surprisingly, the new opportunity, instead of marketing, was sustainable farming. Now, you always learn something about people in your network if you stay steady with getting together, connecting, listening. And what I came to discover that day was that Sarah's interest was in sustainable farming, but there was also this serendipity that I didn't know about Monica, even though we spent months together on her book. She and her husband are from Puerto Rico originally, and serendipitously, they had 3 plots of land that, as Monica put it, were perfect to sell, which is what Sarah was looking for, and it would be perfect for sustainable farming. which also falls into the category in networking of doing well by doing good. And helping a lot of people makes a big difference because more transformational things can happen. So once Monica finished that story, Billy, who I spent 2 years with working on the book that we co-authored, that I participated in, shared my methodology, he shared his, and I worked to combine the two because I had done a lot of networking training, and I said, okay, I'm gonna put the two together, and that became the book, and this has been Billy's also growth tool for himself and for Heidrick and Struggles where he works. He's a partner there. So Billy chimes in, hey, did you know that I lived in Puerto Rico for a year? This was when he was at Motorola. Now, that was a big surprise to me because I had never known. I knew he was out of the country, but he never mentioned Puerto Rico. So that commonality started to grow, and Billy loves points of commonality, as I call them, on the science side of networking, and Billy on the art side. And I think we're definitely in the art in space when we're in serendipity. So then I mentioned that, and it's a 6 degrees opportunity. I had the opportunity when I was working at Motorola to partner with Larry Moll, who ran the cellular division of Motorola for a while. He was the head of leadership. But then he became the head of leadership for American Express. And he asked me if I would come in and work with the folks there. And I was sharing with Monica and Billy that what I did when I trained, and I think it's a good tip for any thought leader, I always provided a free follow-up because that's where you get the stories. And one of the people's stories that I was able to get, and I shared because it had a commonality with Puerto Rico, was one of the leaders, and these were 15 leaders right underneath Ken Chenault, who at that time was the president. One of the leaders was looking at strategies for networking in Puerto Rico, where he had just moved with his wife. But not only would he need a job there, he would, or I should say not need a job, but he would look for opportunities there for American Express. He had a wife who also wanted to look for employment. So he ended up, this individual, we'll call him James, he shared in the storytelling, the follow-up session after the training a week later, that he had gotten in touch, he reached out to a friend from college. And serendipitously, the friend's father ended up owning the major newspaper in Puerto Rico. So when James went and connected with him, he offered the father of his friend to do a joint advertising initiative, which was wonderful, and both parties would benefit. Not only did that happen, but James's wife also, through the help of his friend's father, who owned the newspaper, she was able to get a job. So we definitely can look at these stories as even more than, if you will, a trifecta, and that wonderful things happened, serendipities happened, and that storytelling can bring these to life. So when you're thinking of writing something, I call it tickling the brain when you're able to unearth a serendipity. So what serendipities would you like to unearth within the next month? When you do so, please come back. Also hit the subscribe button, but please share your stories. Storytelling, serendipity, so satisfying. Make it a great day. This is Melissa G. Wilson from Networking and Networking Publishing.